Okay, camera's running. Good to see you.
You too, man.
Have you suddenly gone all hip hop on us?
Yeah, like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Where are you at the moment?
I'm in Miami Beach. You know, my place here. It's where I come to write. I've been doing a lot of writing these days, so I'm in a real zone, which really feels good.
And this is going to be for a follow-up to your last album,
Yeah, but quite different from the Beatles tribute, of course, because it's a continuation of my kind of writing. So it's going to set itself apart from that last one quite a lot, and it's kind of where I've gone. It's kind of, in some ways, far more complex and more involved as the years went on, and I think this one took on another dimension because of so many things happening and so many periods of growth as a writer. And I think it's I've become more and more of a solo player in a way. So there's a lot of parts within what I do. So whereas in the past, the earlier records, there were so many individual parts for different players in the band. So I've gotten, over the years, more and more accustomed to playing acoustic guitar and, fitting in the parts with all the, juxtapositions of, syncopation and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was just laughing because I've seen you in a lot of different situations, but never with a baseball cap.
Yeah, well, it's because it was really sunny out, so I had it on. I just didn't want to cover my face. You won't see me.
Yeah. So, so how's the weather out there in Miami at the moment? Fantastic. Yeah.
It's a little bit of heaven here.
Do you want to know what it's like in England?
Well, it's, what day do you get sun?
The weather's terrible. We've got floods here, man. It's flooding.
Oh, flood?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of south west.
All those ways, the water should be going down.
Yeah, people are worried, man. It's very worrying.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. So when was the last time I saw you? I can't remember the last time. Was it in when you were at Ronnie's last?
I was finishing up on the All Your Life tribute Beatles record. Yeah. By the way, tonight is a big Beatles special. The 50th anniversary of when they came to the States and they played at the Ed Sullivan Show.
Oh, wow.
So there's a big special on tonight, which for me is a big deal because we're fanatics,
Yeah. Did you see that show?
Well, no, it will be shown tonight.
No, I mean, did you see the Beatles?
Yeah, as a kid. Yeah, that was the turning point, or the beginning point in which I had the major urge to play the guitar. I mean, it changed all of our lives. I mean, anyone in that that's a musician or calls himself a musician, plays guitar, was affected if you're in that age category by that one moment, especially.
Yeah. So, and how's the touring been going for that album? Because you did some nights at Ronnie's here, but then I know that you went all over Europe and all over the world, really, touring that album. How's the reception been?
It's been really, really good. This same audience that likes my music, I think, grew up with the Beatles. So the vast majority of the audience is, highly appreciative of the inclusion throughout the show. We don't do a whole show of it because I think, for me, it's more artistically rewarding to blend it in with my own music and some Piazzolla. But the slant of the title of the show is Beatles and More. So there are shows that we do as a quartet versions of some of this material, and then there's we add in some other pieces that work best with the string quartet, who are not on every one of the shows. Just on some rare shows, we have this Budapest string quartet that comes in, so we're able to do like an Eleanor Rigby or Strawberry Fields or I Am the Walrus, especially She's Leaving Home. Although She's Leaving Home we could do as a quartet, no problem. But some of the other ones just fit so much better with the string quartet. So this particular new group I'm coming out with is it's going to be different now, because now I'm going back to playing with Mario Parmesano.
Ah, really?
So he's going to learn a lot of the repertoire, plus some of this new music that I've been writing. I have about 12 new pieces, and I think we'll just pick like 2 or 3 of the new pieces and try to start including them in the set, so he's not too overwhelmed, because I've been off for a long time and able to focus on writing. Yeah. And it's always a good thing when you get in the zone.
Yeah. So is one of these new pieces? Do you remember when we were at Abbey Road and you were playing me a little piece and you said, play it back to me, and I couldn't even get the first 2 notes.
I think it was. I mean, I think that was the first time I exhibited it. You know, a little of the ideas out there, but it's kind of about 10 miles higher since that point in terms of structure and addition. So it's really cool. In fact, it's memorized too, which is good.
Right.
But it's quite complex stuff, but I don't think I do anything simple anymore.
So just for the just to
that's a really modern day Led Zeppelin. I see your post back here. I have something that reminds me of Led Zeppelin. One of these pieces I'm writing. It's just my slant on it.
Oh, okay. Well, Zeppelin were always one of my favourite bands from the very, very, very beginning. Did you ever see them live?
No, I never did, but I know Jimmy, and and he's a great guy. I actually played with him, and I was a huge fan, like most of us. Again, those first 3 records for sure were monumental. That time. In fact, so much stuff coming out of London in that period, man. There's been a lot of British documentaries coming out on the explosion of the 60s out of Britain. And some of it is like so heartfelt, man. When you see some of the stuff, it just evokes tears, because it brings back all of those great feelings you had when we were young, which none of these kids have today. Forget about it. You know what I mean? We grew up in the best of times, man. That was the most powerful decade ever. Beatles on down. You had a lot of great stuff coming out of London. Tremendous.
And the guitar was kind of centre stage and all that, wasn't it? It was really right in the middle of it.
For sure, but even Hendrix, even though he was an American, he was largely influenced out of London. So all of it was, these British documentaries are amongst the best, and it's been this tremendous wave because of the Beatles anniversary and what happened in that whole decade. It's amazing how it paved the way even for where I am today. A lot of the production on my records over the years was a direct result of a lot of what I heard and grew up with and assimilated from hearing George Martin's production and the Beatles. I still think of those separations of the drums on one side and all of that kind of thing, and I think of the Beatles on every single recording, even though I'm playing a music that's quite different instrumentally.
I remember you saying that actually when we were in the studio and you were actually recording that you. And when you were listening back to the rough mixes, you were really particular about having one part very clearly kind of panned hard right and another part really clearly panned hard left.
It's like, I really like when there's percussion and drums playing, but they're not playing the same thing. And the way that I write my music, and I like writing out all the different parts so that there's syncopation going on with individual parts where they don't clash. So it will clash because they're so close, the syncopations. If you mix together, you got more honing in to hear what's going on. But if you separate, you get clarity on the parts. I don't know why the Beatles did that, but I just thought it was ultra cool when you had songs like, going back to that group, when you have John Lennon's voice coming out of completely one side of the speaker, and then the cello on it completely the other side. And because they were using 4-track and sometimes 8-track, the size of the instruments in the voice were humongous. It's just ridiculous. And that was one of the thrills that we had going to Abbey Road and recording along the lines of how they did it with analog, with lesser tracks, and it really proved to be. And we did the EAP, by the way, with against digital. It was a tremendous difference. On top of the fact that acoustically the studio was the finest sounding studio I've ever heard.
It was amazing being there, wasn't it? It was amazing being
one of the great experiences of my professional career was being there. I really did feel like this kid, little kid in Wonderland,
Yeah. So actually, speaking of which, maybe because this video is going to be for my kind of guitar website that I'm setting up, and but I thought it would be really nice to have a kind of personal conversation with you, because we've been friends for quite a long time now. It's been, well, I don't know how long it's been, but maybe you could just explain for the viewers.
You were a little kid at the backstage door that I saw every time I came to the Hammersmith. There's a same little kid there. That's how that began.
Yeah, that's how we met. So that would have been like in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah,
something like that.
I guess it was around there.
And then how did that? And maybe you could tell everyone about how when you first had the idea for recording in London, what kind of happened.
Well, we all go through personal things in our lives, and I was, touring Europe. I had a lot of days off during the tour in the summer, especially the summer is kind of busy, spring, summer. So, I was going through a personal relationship situation where, I found myself alone in my hotel room thinking about the problem and actually driving myself crazy. So, it was a situation in which my band resides in Europe, so they get to go home on these 3, 4, 5 day stretches. So I had this idea that kind of saved my conscience, saved my life in a way, I like to say. And that was just to actually, sit down and actually map out a plan to record more than just 1 or 2 classic pieces, but actually do a whole collection. So my first thought was, okay, I have the time, and I've been toying around with some of these pieces. Maybe I should find a studio. At the time I was in Prague, so I was thinking maybe Prague, maybe Germany, and then I think I talked to you, and I asked you, I said, I know this is a crazy question, Mo, but is Abbey Road, I know it's a tourist site, but is it still operating as a studio? I'm not sure. So you got back to me and said, yeah, man, they're fully operating, and they're doing a lot of soundtracks and commercials and things. But all 3 rooms are fully booked. They're happening, and as was in the past. And intact.
Yeah.
So I said, if there's any way, it's beyond a dream, if I can get in there for a day or so. And so it was arranged.
Yeah.
I think through you and my secretary to do the initial 2 days.
Yeah.
Which turned to 3 days. So I got my first 3 tracks that I was so happy about, because usually I go to a studio, and if I wear headphones, I'm never really, inspired. Hardly ever. But the sound coming through those phones were amazing. It was so rich and pure, and of course the environment being there, the whole experience added to the thrill. And I got 3 pieces that I was really, really happy with, which then my thought was, because of the enormity and the cost and the proximity to the United States, I just thought I'd finish it in the States, in my own studio, back in New Jersey or in New York City, which I tried. I tried to record the rest, but none of it came to the level sonically as what we attained at Abbey Road. Not close.
Yeah.
Not even in that studio in New York. It was less than half the quality, and we did use analog in New York.
Right.
Similar to what we did in Abbey Road, but there's some magic about the wiring, the converters, the microphones, the acoustics of the room are beyond unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you add in all the factors. We were left with no alternative but to plan to go back. We just had to go back. That was it, and we loved going back. It was just the way it was. Yeah. And then back a third time, because it took 3 different periods in which to complete it, which was in February last year.
It was kind of it was roughly over a year, wasn't it, from the first time you came?
I think it began in May, 3 days, I believe, and then the end of the year, November, I think, we did another 4 or 5 tracks.
Yeah.
And then finished in February, 1 year ago.
Yeah, wow. So, and also, I think the second time you came over, you came with your daughter, didn't you? And we went for a midnight drive around London and saw...
it was really the first time I invited Oriana, who's here right now.
Oh, is she? Tell her I said hi.
Yeah, she's visiting. Yeah, she'll pop in. And I invited my buddy Hernan, my music buddy, I've always included him on my last at least 12 CDs because we think alike. He knows what I like. It's good to have a set of ears that we're in tune together. Not doing any of the engineering, but just listening and you bounce ideas off of one another. So he's always acted as a kind of associate producer to my projects. And I said, well, if he's going to come, that would feel better than going into a studio cold with engineers I don't know. And to have my daughter who appreciates the Beatles and loves traveling with her dad, so she came over, and it made for a period in which I was having a personal downside, one of the great moments of my career. So
and we spent quite a long time on that zebra crossing on the crossing outside the studio trying to get some shots.
I know. We did though. I mean,
and I think you used some of them in the album on the album cover, didn't you? In the booklet.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Yeah.
There's the album cover.
Yeah, and it turned out really great. It sounds amazing. So how did you? Tell me how you felt the first time you walked into the big studio that we went to when they showed us around and took us downstairs.
It's close to crying. It's close to crying. It's a thrill that the only way I could describe it is as I described it in the story on the inside of the CD. Because not only are there vast amount of pictures of the experience of Abbey Road and being in London during the recording, and the pictures, on the inside as well, but there's a story here about it, and the best way I can describe it is that I felt like that thrill that we don't have as adults anymore. It just doesn't exist like when you were a kid, and if you were to go to Disneyland when you're 5 years old or 4 years old, the amazement of it, it was something on the scale like that. That you don't get so much when in later life. We have little thrills and little happinesses and stuff like that, but this was like, wow. Wow. And, it was like that, and I know it's like that for almost anybody who experienced the greatness that came out of that place.
And it was I remember when we played the piano that was in that studio. That's the actual piano they played on all those Beatles songs, man.
Yeah, the Obla Lady Madonna. It's a tremendous thrill. You have no idea. It's something I will live with, high in my memory bank. As just one of the smartest things I had done, especially timing-wise. For more than one personal reason, but also for musical reasons, to have made a record like that instead of a record like the collection of the record before, which is a book of all my music. But this was the record before.
Right.
So if I made another, let's say, complex record, I wouldn't know what to talk about in an interview because I've made so many records that what am I going to talk about? It's just what I do. But with this record, there was so much to talk about because there's a story behind it. And there's a history behind it. And the fact that it was done at Abbey Road as opposed to this same collection being done at another studio. There's less to talk about. And then I became a neighbor of Paul McCartney just by chance. I mean, it wasn't planned. It just, out of millions of houses, the one that was rented to me just happened to be the next door neighbor to Paul, and I got to meet him and give him the CD and hang out a little bit and talk. And I said, this is all totally surreal happening at the same time.
It's like a dream, isn't it? It's something that you almost can't believe.
And the night before, the last time I saw him, I was in the studio with Keith Richards, and that was the first.
I remember. I think I saw some photographs of that in mine.
Yeah, and it's just beautiful because it connects you back to a time in which the thrill of why we started in music, it all came back together. Yeah, and it's still there. It's still there. You can listen to this stuff today. Like I said, when we seen that documentary coming out of Britain on it was called The British Invasion, right? And it's fantastic. Even though some of it had a dated thing about it, it didn't matter. It was damn good. Yeah, And then a lot of us just, took the ball and we all went off in our own thing. But a lot of it came from that early fascination.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, that because of the nature of the music that you've been involved in and how you became known as a musician, a lot of people wouldn't think that you were into the Beatles, and yet I remember the first time I Skyped you at your house in New Jersey, above your desk there's a big photograph of Sgt. Pepper's, the album cover. So
it's a lithograph. It's a lithograph of the most famous recording in the world. Yeah, sure. Yeah. There's always a reminder of them anywhere that I am. I think I think I talk to people about it, and I say, every single day of our life, we will see or hear something about the Beatles. Yeah. If you actually think about it, you will see something or hear something almost every single day. It's amazing. Yeah. It's no other like that.
It's just part of our culture, isn't it? That's the thing.
50 years later, it's like you could turn on the TV, or you could look at a newspaper or a magazine, or see some glimpse of one of them, or some reference somehow, or some little thing somewhere. It's great. Yeah.
Well, listen, Al, what I'm gonna do is thank you very much for that. I'm gonna turn the camera off now on the audio device, but I'm gonna stay on Skype because now it's time just to talk. Then we can carry on talking about other stuff. So thank you very much for that interview. It's lovely to see you with your hip hop cap. Next time I'm going to expect you to do a rap.
It's only because I came in from the beach. I have not turned that way. So
okay, just give me a second. I'm going to turn the camera off. Hang on.